Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the top 5 best gods in Smite for beginners. Coming in at number 5, we have Chiron, the great teacher. Now for me, when I think of horses, I think of bumpy rides and sore balls, but for a beginner, Chiron is one of the best gods to pick up and play, and here's why. Chiron's first ability, Training Exercise, is pretty much a win-win-win. If you throw it on the minions, it'll clear the minion wave. If you throw it on an enemy, it will cripple and cause a large amount of damage, and if you throw it on your teammates, it will cleanse them. There's really no way for a beginner to mess up that ability. His number 2 is also one of the best hit confirms in the game. All you need to do is land one basic attack and you guarantee for several seconds later at almost what feels like an infinite range to hit them again with your number 2's damage and slow them. This ability is almost impossible to miss, and so I can't think of a better thing for a beginner to be using, but it also will help you get a lot of kills early on, and as a beginner you're going to have a better time if you have a little bit of leeway playing a level or two ahead of your opponents. Chiron's dash also makes it impossible for you to body block him, so he's just a very safe character overall. Because of Chiron's ability to get kills easily, his overall utility of his number 1 on both enemies, teammates, and the minion wave, and his safe dash that makes him very hard to lock down, Chiron comes in at number 5 on my list. Number 4, Kukulkan, Serpent of the 9 Winds. Kukulkan is one of the oldest gods in Smite, and actually when I first started playing him in the beta, he was called Ao Kuang. Now as a beginner, your ultimate goal is to learn the game of Smite, but during that process you want to pick a god that's going to allow you to positively contribute to both the laning phase and the teamfight phase. Kukulkan is a great god for this because all you need to do is land one tornado onto a couple of enemies or hit anyone on the enemy team with your ultimate, and that will basically swing the fight in your favor. Late game, his ultimate and tornadoes are pretty much a death sentence for anyone who happens to get near them. Now while most of his damage can be done at range or in the back line of your team, he doesn't have a jump, a dash, or a teleport, so I can't put him higher in this list. His number 2 does make him immune to slows and increase his movement speed by a large amount for a short period of time, but if someone is intent on catching up to you and has some type of frostbound hammer or a stun, you're going to be screwed. So make sure you buy sprint and or purification beads and or combat blink so you can get away if the going gets rough. Because of his high scaling, his ability to do damage at range, his incredible wave clear, and his positive team fight potential, Kukulkan ranks in at number 4 on my list. Number 3, Cupid, the god of love. Now Cupid is an interesting god, and he makes it to number 3 on my list for several reasons. 1, he has a lot of mobility. His dash is one of the quickest dashes in the game and allows you to escape kind of precarious situations relatively easily. Now Cupid ranks at number 3 on my list because he allows you to make a lot of mistakes and still do well. The thing I love about Cupid for a beginner is that his heart bomb hits twice, so again that's hitting one ability and getting 2 points of guaranteed damage. But the real reason Cupid jumps up to number 3 on my list is because of his ultimate and his sustain. His number 2 can provide health to his allies and then mana to him, or just health to him if he decides to pick up the hearts himself. Cupid's number 2 affords him and his allies the ability to mismanage their health and mana and still stay in lane. As a beginner, that's huge because health and mana management are some of the finer points you start to pick up on as you play more and more Smite. Now lastly, his ultimate is the biggest cripple in the entire game and a fantastic way to set up your teammates for an offensive attack. Also, if Cupid's under pressure, that is a get out of jail free card because you just fire that on yourself and then people chasing you will be forced to retreat or run around, which in that case you can just dash straight back towards your base or your tower and you'll be safe. Now despite not being played very much in Conquest or Arena, Cupid still has one of the highest winning percentages of all the gods in Smite, meaning he must have something going on right with his kit. Because of his high mobility, his damage, his sustain, and his ability to set up teammates or escape with his ultimate, he comes in at number 3 on my list. Number 2, Poseidon, god of the oceans. Now, Poseidon is one of the older gods in Smite's history, one of the first gods released, and he's not seen very much in competitive play except by Eager's mid laner, Lasses, one of my favorite players. As far as casual play, however, Poseidon is one of the best beginner gods you can choose. Now, Poseidon ranks at number 2 on this list for several reasons. One is because his kit is super easy to grasp. It's a number 1 forward projectile that knocks people back. His number 2 makes his basic attacks 30% wider on each side, so it's pretty hard to miss them. His number 3 is a whirlpool that's one of the strongest abilities in the game and cripples opponents and pulls them towards the center. And his number 4 pretty much seals the deal, that Kraken being probably the most recognizable ultimate in all of Smite. With full tide meter, Poseidon is 10% faster than everyone else, and if he activates his number 2 at full rank, that's an extra 25% speed on top of that, so he is relatively safe and very mobile for a mage. Not only that, he's one of the worst and hardest mages to gank, because if he has a whirlpool and Kraken available, all he has to do is catch you in the center of that whirlpool and it's lights out for you. He could throw his entire kit onto you without you being able to do a single thing, and it can possibly 100 to 0 you like that. Now, Poseidon has pretty decent scaling and he's got very good wave clear with his abilities, but the reason he really jumps up to number 2 for me is because his teamfight presence is astronomical. Poseidon, with just one good whirlpool, can completely change the dynamic of a fight, shutting down everyone's mobility and basically keeping them in that circle. Whirlpool Kraken changes fights, and it's one of the easier combos to put together. And so as a beginner, this is one of those gods that you can actually pick up relatively quickly and start doing really well with, considering how dynamic your combination is with those two abilities. The reason Poseidon doesn't make it to number 1 on my list is because Whirlpool and Kraken actually force you to be a little closer to the enemy than I would like. And for a beginner, you want to be able to do your damage as far away as possible and still positively affect the team. However, because he's got great wave clear, relatively high mobility for a mage, and Whirlpool and Kraken are so strong, Poseidon ranks in at number 2 on my list. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for. The number 1 best god in Smite for beginners is Agni, the god of fire. Agni is a breath of fresh air in Smite. He's so good to play, and he does damage from range better than almost any other mage in the game. Now, the weird thing is that Agni can be one of the hardest gods to master, but I think as a beginner, this is your best god to pick up and play, especially if you like mages, and here's why. Number 1, Agni can do an incredible amount of damage from range, staying safe while he's doing it. He also has the safest dash in the game, which is extremely important as a beginner if you're in a bad situation and you need to reposition yourself. Or say someone's just trying to attack you and you want to get away. His dash makes it very hard for them to catch up. And let's not forget that you're in the back line, so now they've had to climb through 4 of your other teammates just to get to you, only to have you dash quickly away. And for those enemies who do get in your face, or if you decide to get in an enemy's face, you have several ways to stun them very quickly to give yourself time to either reposition and get out of trouble or continue in the fight. Now, even if you don't partake in these pro strategies of how to stun someone multiple times with Agni, if you just stand in the back line and drop fire bombs and meteors onto your opponents, you're going to be doing a great job for your team in providing that magical damage and area damage as well. Now, the last and most important reason I recommend Agni as your number 1 beginner god in Smite is because he's always been relevant. Ever since he was released in May of 2012, Agni has seen professional and casual play consistently, and so picking him up and getting good with him as a beginner is only going to allow you to play in more situations, be more effective in more scenarios, and help your team more and more again, as this god is not going out of favor anytime soon. Now, that'll do it for me today. Those are my top 5 best gods in Smite for beginners. If you enjoyed this and want to see more top 5 content, let me know in the comments section below. And if you want to stay tuned to more action here at Rain Day Gaming, please leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more to come. As always, my name is Rain Day. Never give up, never stop gaming, and I'll see you guys next time.